Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation.
Did you ever go through a time in your life where you considered becoming a vegetarian? I definitely did. I grew up with animals. I raised them for fare, and I have firsthand experience of their intelligence and their emotions and how amazing they are. And I despaired at whether it was necessary for them to die for me to have something on my plate, and watching how they are abused in the large farming operations that we have today. And I think that if you ever considered that, or if you did change your life and become a vegetarian, reading through this part of the Bible with all of the blood and the sacrifice and all of the animals being killed day in, day out in order for humans to have a relationship with God feels heavy. It feels unnecessary. It feels violent and too much. And I think here today in Leviticus 16 through 19, God provides a balance in this text. So God is going over with Aaron, or he's going over with Moses, who is then going to talk to Aaron about how he can approach God safely. They've just lost Moses' nephews, Aaron's sons, because they did not approach God appropriately. And I believe that grieves God immensely here, that he has to find more and better ways to protect his children when they're coming to him. And so he's laying out all the things that Aaron needs to do to be most whole and most protected and most sound before he comes before God in his presence. One of the things is the initiation of the scapegoat. If you never realized that the idea of a scapegoat actually came from the Bible, this is a real fun passage to read. And indeed, Aaron is supposed to go in and atone for his own sins first, and then his family. So before he becomes a priest for others, he is supposed to get right with God himself. And the scapegoat gets sent out. There are two goats brought to the entrance of the tent, and one goat is sacrificed to make the area clean, and the other goat is sent out into the wilderness carrying on its head all of the sins of the Israelites. We go through the Day of Atonement and what that means, and the solemn rest of the Sabbath. And as we go through this, God is talking about not copying the Canaanites. This is all preparing the Israelites to go into this new land where not only are they going to have a new place to live, but they're going to have neighbors. They've been wandering, and so the neighbor aspect hasn't really been a thing, but now they're going to settle, and they're going to get influenced by other people, or rather, God doesn't want them to be influenced. And he lists off a lot of the things that the Canaanites are doing that he does not want the Israelites to do. And some of those things are homosexuality, bestiality, child sacrifice. He mentions here that these people are being kicked out. The land has been defiled, and it is rejecting the people. I want to pull back to something that I just skipped over, and the animals. The animal sacrifice. Here in this couple chapters, God actually puts prohibitions on animals that we're going to eat. And it turns out that if you want to eat an animal, it must be a sacrifice to God. It must be offered as a fellowship offering. And reading this sort of turned this all around for me to, I had to reread it, and I actually went and dug into some commentaries because I wasn't sure that I had read it properly. Up until this point, it had been okay to kill an animal for the dinner table just out in the field. And the concern was that this was turning into sort of a pagan celebration. And so God was cutting off that potential for sure by saying you have to do it properly. You have to bring it in. It has to be sacrificed at the doorway to the temple of meeting. The fat is sacred to me. The blood is sacred to me. You must go through all of this ritual readiness and be ready to stand before God. But I think that it's more than that. It's very clearly a stipulation here that the animal is precious to God as well. We get this notion because we read in Genesis that God puts us over top of all creation. And a lot of people abuse this in the Christian faith, that this means we can go around pillaging the earth and killing everything that we want without any respect because we're man and we were given the ability to be over all of this and do what we want. And here God is saying, nope. The animals are sacred to me too. And he goes on then to say that the land has actually the ability to reject people. And further in the passage, he talks about fruit trees and the law that for 3 years, you are not to collect anything from that fruit tree. In the 4th year, the fruit is God's. And then the 5th year on, you can begin to harvest so that the plant can be healthy, so that the tree can be healthy. God is saying in these chapters that all life is important to him. It is all sacred. And if you are going to eat meat, you have to get right with God. You have to bring it to the temple. You have to sacrifice it appropriately, because he actually says, if you don't, then you carry blood guilt, meaning you carry the same weight of a crime before God as killing a human. Blood guilt is only for murder. It is called murder if you kill an animal outside of this reverence, outside of this sacred sacrifice. And so all throughout Israel, when food is being taken from animals, when animals are being sacrificed, it has to be sacred. What a huge testament to the fact that life is sacred. All life is sacred to God. And all of this, it puts into a different frame for me, all of this sacrifice of meat, because I think the animals, it's hard to kill. If you have ever butchered at home, it is hard to kill, and it should be hard to kill, and you should reference that as a gift from the Creator. My son is responsible for all of the butchering on our property. And I know I have asked him afterwards, and I have not been present, but he takes the moment to thank God for the life of the animal and to ask that his hand be guided to be as merciful and as swift and as caring and loving as possible in the act of taking the animal's life. Unfortunately, here on earth, all life depends on the taking of other life. To continue our lives, we must take the lives of plants and animals to survive. And here God is saying that the soil, the plants, the animals, they are all sacred, and they should all be honored in the taking of that life, honored in understanding God's place in giving them to us, and understanding that we have to be right with God in order to have the privilege of taking that life and properly consuming it, properly incorporating it into ourselves so that we can have the best life. And I think that this is such an important couple chapters after we've waded through all the sacrifices to fully understand that there weren't animals being eaten all day, every day, throughout the community, and then we also had sacrifices for when we wanted to thank God or when we wanted to treat our neighbors or take care of the priests. The only time animals were sacrificed were in a ritual honoring of God, and it plugged into a purpose within the community. What a different perspective, and something that we can definitely learn from and think about more in depth with the way that we are caring for animals that we're raising and animals that we consume on the dinner plate. Because if we are eating animals that were not honored, that were offered up to sacrifice for something else other than God, which happens in CAFO. It happens in all day, every day, all day, to supply our grocery stores. We are participating in that ritual. We are honoring that with that which that ritual honors. And we have to be really careful about that, because the food then is feeding what? Is it feeding your wellness? Or is it feeding an illness? A deep illness, a disconnection, a spiritual, emotional, physical illness that is throughout our society right now. I pray that God is blessing you today and making you dig a little bit deeper, maybe running to this passage and seeing if you can see the same reverence here. And I pray that He brings you back with more curiosity to join me in searching and learning on another day. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Don Combs Really.